Welcome to Rooted in God's Love, the masterclass series for Christian women who desire to feel the Father's unconditional love, get grounded in their true identity in Him, and courageously pursue their God-given purpose and assignment. I'm your host, ALANA Palm, and I use biblical principles and cognitive behavioral therapy to help women just get deeply rooted in who they are in Christ, love who God created them to be, and wake up joyful every day living in their kingdom purpose. And I am very excited today to introduce you to Kari Olson. Kari is a Christian mindset coach and business strategist. She helps Christian female entrepreneurs create, market, and sell transformational online coaching programs in 90 days or less through her proven Holy Spirit-led approach to business and financial freedom. She specializes in helping women called for more, which so many of us are, right? We just don't always know what we're called for, but she specializes in that and in helping women to let go of those money mindset blocks and finally receive the abundance that God wants for his daughters. She shows Christian coaches and women how to design a business that generates plentiful income so that they can be in partnership with God to be both profitable and generous, all without the hustle, fear, or burnout. So beautiful. Welcome, Kari. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure.
So today we're going to be talking about making your mess your message, which is such a great topic. And before we dive into this, Kari, maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about your own story of finding your message in your mess.
Yes, of course. This, can be a roundabout journey like it is for so many of us. But for me, it started in 2012. I was diagnosed with cancer at a young age with three tiny little kids. It's like, okay, Lord, I don't understand this, but I'm here for whatever you want me to do. And so after a very disempowering experience with the healthcare and cancer and surgery and all that kind of stuff, I was like, this should not be like this. I really felt like he was calling me to do health coaching for other moms with cancer. I was searching for that community and just couldn't find anything. I wanted to be a part of something more, but I went to the hospital support group and it was, just people that weren't in the same kind of situation as me. And so I set out to kind of create that for myself and really feel like he led me through this experience like, let's use this to shine his light on everyone. And so I I loved it. I loved learning. I loved helping other moms. But it was also a very hard time in my life. My ex husband at the time ended up walking out early on in my cancer journey. I had a house in foreclosure. I had three little kids. And I was also working at a school as an occupational therapist. Even between the OT job and my health coaching, we were not making enough to pay the mortgage, let alone anything else. And so it was just a very hard time in my life. Um, but you know, it was one morning in August of 2015 where, when you have in the US a sheriff sale on your house goes into foreclosure, they actually send a policeman, a sheriff to your door. They hand you the papers and um this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I was just like trying to shield my kids from everything, the divorce and my cancer and everything. They were really suffering too. But I was just like, I told them, like, I'm going to have to get another job. And like, they were only going to get one present for Christmas, even though it was August. I just didn't want them to be bawling on Christmas morning and that we would have to cut out all of their activities. And that was probably the thing that they were just like so polite and they're eating their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and nodding their heads, but they were scared to death. And just as a mom, that was so heartbreaking to know that I wasn't being able to provide for everything I knew that they wanted and needed. And I just remember going, like, running to the bathroom. I'm like, don't let them see you cry. Shouldn't have been that big of a deal. But I was in there, and at one point, my youngest daughter, Amelie, she was knocking at the door, and I opened it up. She's standing there with her sweet little, like, pink cheetah print suitcase, and she's like, Mom, we're gonna be okay. Like, I have things for us to sell for money. And, as sweet as that was, I was like, honey, like, I love your heart, but this is not something that you should be worried about. But she ran up to her room. She filled her suitcase with rocks and seashells and books and Barbies, all of her earthly treasures, and just felt the need to take care of our family. And that night, I just remember after I put them to bed, like just kneeling and praying to the Lord. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Obviously, I can't do this by myself. Like, I need your help. And whatever it is that you are calling me to do or asking me to do, I just tell me. I just need to hear from you. I can't do this by myself anymore. Because I had been all about hustle, hustle, make this work, do more, do more. And I mean, that's I think a common thing when we're in those stressful situations is we resort back to what we saw in childhood and growing up. And that's what I saw. You just work more, you work harder, more hours, whatever. And yet I knew because of, my health scares and what I had been through that that was not what God wanted for me. I was not partnering with him. I was not looking to him. And it took this breaking point for me to just be like, okay, Lord, I need you. Let's do this together. And as hard as that was, it was such a blessing. I started to really walk in the relationship and the calling that he had for me. But first, it was just like he said, stop doing the health coaching. I was like, but, how am I going to pay for groceries? And, I had all these questions, and he just gave me the peace, of knowing our relationship, of him as my father, not just this, holy man up in the sky, but like he wanted to just know that he was with me, that he had me, that I didn't have to work so hard. I just needed to partner with him and listen to him and his vision for our life. So I stopped doing the health coaching. I had a lot to figure out myself around my own worth, money mindset, the way I grew up. And, but then I came back to business after this incredible transformation of all he revealed and, just partnering with him. What does a business look like where you don't have to be so crazy and it's not all on your shoulders? Like you can work together with him. And that's where it's not been an overnight journey. It's certainly had its ups and downs and all around. But, it's just, ah, I look back now and I'm like, Lord, thank you. I don't think that could have happened any other way. It takes a big life event like that to kind of get me to listen. And I'm so grateful for it all now because I walk with him and I look to him for every step and every direction. And, I think a lot of times we keep our business and our, religion or whatever it is separately. But I have just learned in partnering with him, oh my goodness, it's so much easier, so much more joyful. And I love the journey and the miracles that he has led me through that have me now where I'm at.
Wow, what a powerful story. Thank you so much for sharing that and being so open about that. I think so many people can relate who are watching and they're thinking, okay, I know my own version of that story. Maybe it was cancer, maybe it was something else, but they feel that pain that you've been through and they understand it on a level in their own lives from what they've been through. And I don't know what they would ask you if they were sitting here, but one question that I think they might ask you is, how were you able to just walk in so much obedience, faith, and trust during that time that was so difficult? You didn't have answers. God was calling you to do something, lay something down that you felt was your bread and butter, your provision. So, how did you walk in obedience, faith, and trust during that time?
Well, I thought I had been until that moment, which is kind of a funny thing. And obviously, things were not working out. But I realized, I think that was the realization is like, oh, yeah, I am doing this all on my own power. I am not walking in the faith and the trust because when I'm putting in 100% of myself, leaving him out of the equation is just working harder and harder and more and more. And this has got me to this point where I'm not able to do what I want for my kids, and our house is falling, down around us. And it was kind of a fight, but I think it was just that night. It was like I I realized I had been trying that. And so and that was modeled from me from my parents, but it was like, okay, Lord, I see now this has been all on me. Let's try something different. And it was baby steps at first. It wasn't a giant leap off a cliff. It was like, okay, I'm going to trust you. And I would just take a baby step. All it was the next right step. And that was really, I didn't know the path. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I had no idea if we'd live in our house, if I'd have to move in with, relatives. I had no idea, but I just decided in that moment, like, obviously what I'm doing here on my own is not working. Why wouldn't I trust my loving father and see and trust the plans that he has for me? Just realize, and again, I needed to grow in my own faith and trust and relationship with him so that I could believe that the promises that he writes about in the word are true. It's not just words, it is like, let's walk this out. This wasn't just for 2000 years ago. This is for us still today.
Mm, beautiful. So how did you walk that out? Like, what did that look like for you to actually, grow closer to him to the point where you were able to be more surrendered to his plan?
Yeah, it started again, like he called me to just stop coaching. And I just thought, okay, maybe it'll be a week or two, and I just need to learn something here and then I'll go back to it. And I did. I needed to learn so much about my own worth, just aside, not connected to any job, not connected to a house or a salary or anything, just my worth in him through him as his daughter. And again, I didn't know what that would look like, but through this, I mean, what starts out is like you can't connect the dots sometimes when you're in it. But as we were living in this house in foreclosure, we had the sheriff sales, as I explained to you, but they fell through. And this is when your house goes up for auction at the county courthouse. Like, this is lawyers and bankers and just scary people to deal with. But it fell through 17 times. And the first couple of times I'm like, that's interesting. No one could explain to me why it happened. Was it the paperwork? Was it who knows? But then by like probably it took me a lot longer than it should have. But probably by about the sixth or seventh time, I'm like, there's something going on here. And this is beyond what any human can be doing. I'm like, Lord, is that you? And I just felt in my heart, he's like, I've got you. I told you I did. I've got you. And I had to believe that. And I had to be walking in it and see him doing these miracles in our lives. But we were able to live in that house, me and my three kids, for 6.5 years without a mortgage payment. I mean, I didn't even know if I could pay for a one-bedroom apartment, but I think when I added it up, I mean, it was 3,100 a month. So it was like $224,000 basically that we saved when I thought I had to work harder and harder and more jobs and whatever. I mean, I could not have made $224,000. That was my prayer. That was my, solution. But he was like, Carrie, I've got you. Like, I'm going to figure this out. And it went a whole different way because, again, it started out as a very shameful situation, just walking into that house, feeling the pressure of, gosh, this is just suffocating when I walk in here and I know I can't pay for it. And yet he just made beauty out of that. And my kids were able to see that too. I told them like 17 times we were going to move, because they kept giving us different dates, but being able to come back to them. And that's their story now too. Like, they've shared this with friends where, yeah, we thought we were going to have to move out in, 2012, and then God let us live in our house and for 6.5 more years. I mean, at the end, I had met my new husband. We tore his house down. He moved into our old house with us. And then we came back over here where we're living in our dream house now, but we were able to stay there without any, monthly payment as well. So I could not have orchestrated that. It's just, and it's something I needed to see firsthand. Again, just like walking in obedience, the trust and the faith, and knowing He's got a plan, even when we don't, and it's going to be way better than what we think our own plan is or anything that we could ask or imagine.
That is such a powerful story. And, one of the things that comes to mind among so many amazing things about that story is that, we spend so much of our life trying to control the circumstances, control the outcomes, control, like be God in our own lives, right? We want to make it all work out a certain way. We want it to look a certain way. And we think that's the best thing for us. But
Mhm.
what you just shared reveals how much beauty there is when we just allow God through a place of trust and faith in who He is, in His character, in His protection and provision. When we choose to surrender to that and just like lay it down at the foot of the cross and say, God, I'm going to give this to you. I trust you. And the
Mhm.
fact that in your story, 17 times, like that, like, I don't know a lot about how that works, but what would be like the reason why it would just keep falling through and falling through and falling through like that? Like, I mean, is there any reason that that would ever happen?
No, I have been told my parents were like, you need to see a financial planner. And I went to see probably six of them. And yeah, they were all saying basically you should have a year there without a payment and then you are kicked out, because this doesn't happen. There's no explanation other than God.
Wow. So let's say you're at the fifth, sixth time, seventh time, you're figuring out maybe God's doing something here. And then even after that, I'm curious, kind of like going a little deeper into that. When that next time would come up, did you ever wonder, oh, maybe this is going to be the time when I have to leave? Or did you from that point on go, okay, I totally trust God, it's all good.
I wish I could say, yeah, from then off, smooth sailing, but no, I'm like, okay. I think probably every single time I'm like, this is it. Because I do remember telling my kids, okay, this is the date. They would give you a 6-month window, of like, this is when you need to be out. And I was like, let's just prepare. And I think, it was being prepared, but then just letting the outcome be whatever God wanted it to be. Is I was letting go. And I think that was really the biggest thing for me is I do like control. And I can honestly say anymore that it's in His hands and it's way better that it's in His hands than mine. So that was a huge, huge blessing for me to learn. And again, I don't know if I could have learned it any other way.
So powerful. And then by the time you got to the 17th, now did you actually move out before you got told? Or okay, so you had already moved out of the house now at this point, 6.5 years later, and then you finally hear, okay, like I guess we need to move out, but you'd already moved out.
Yes, yes, and our beautiful house with my new husband, yeah, we moved in September, and the house was still technically in my name through the following year, like the year after that happened. And I'm like, just you can just have it now. Please just take this. But
Wow.
yeah, he provided.
And then where was your ex-husband in all of this? Like, was this a difficult point of contention for you with the Lord? Did you ever have to reconcile that too at the time?
Oh, very much so. So the day that I came home, I was running errands. And I walked up the front walk. He's sitting on our front porch with a backpack on, and he was just like, "I'm out of here. It's not fun anymore." Again, I had cancer, so can't say I was the most fun person to be around at that time. But he was like, "This is not for me," and he walked out, like literally walked out. He didn't even have a car. He just walked away down the block. But the last thing he told me as he was doing this. He's like, "You probably should know that I don't believe in God. I haven't since I was 15. I just play along because I knew how important it was to you." And so at that point, I just was like, that was an absolute shock. I had no idea he was even contemplating things like this. I mean, the rug was pulled completely from under my feet. And I was like, nope, we're going to do counseling. We're going to be fine. Again, trying to control the whole situation. And I tried, but again, it can't just be on me. And God had to really just be like, again, Carrie, I have better plans for you than you did for yourself. You've just got to let this one go and be grateful for the time and the three amazing, beautiful kids. And, just pray for him above all, just pray for him. So that's been another area I have needed and really strengthened my walk with him.
That's amazing. Totally amazing. I love like your whole story is so powerful. And then, why do you think that you or women in general, why do you think we want to control things so much?
That's a really good question. For me, it was just, I think it's something that when I'm looking at it now, I can see the enemy's kind of way of getting in there and worming in his way and just being, again, it's almost like a little, this, I just think of even like Eve in the Garden of Eden. What if you just, can you do this? And, you know, it's just those little voices that we give little inches here and there. If we are not completely rooted in the word and our relationship and just be like, nope, I hear you, that's the enemy. Do not even talk to me. But during those times, I don't think I think I heard those voices and gave it way too much credit. Whereas had I known God's voice stronger in my heart, walking more in a relationship rather than just a religion, that I would have been like, is this really what I should be doing or should not be doing? And yeah, I it was not modeled to me from the way that my parents were. There was just so much control in the household that I think when I got out, I wanted to have control of my own and wanted that in my relationship, in my house, in my kids. And now I'm just like, okay, even with my kids, I'm like, Lord, they're yours. I am so grateful that I get to be their mom and spend time with them. But whatever you want for them, ultimately they're yours. So, and it's much easier when you give up that control too. Like it's pretty amazing to walk in the freedom that gives you.
Oh yeah, and I think, the reason I'm asking about it because I think so many of us struggle with wanting that control. Like I know I have, even when I became a Christian, I was
Yeah.
like I have to give somebody else God, whoever, I didn't totally know who God was, but I was making this choice to give God control over my life. And I thought, yikes, like how am I ever going to give someone else control over my life? Like I think I'm doing okay with it, right? But
Yeah.
nowhere near what God can do when we give him control. And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah.
And what you said about, if you were listening to the voice of the enemy more, and if you'd been more rooted and grounded in God and his truth, that would have made a big difference. So I'm kind of curious then, how would you say knowing who you are as a daughter of the king impacts your ability to withstand these storms of life?
Oh, that is everything. And I realize just how powerful that is now. Again, I took on the worldly view. Well, if my mom said I'm okay, then I'm okay. If my dad said I'm okay, if my husband said I'm okay, if the teacher is giving me an A, then I'm okay. But I had to go through that realization like, no, God made me perfectly as I am for a reason. He loves me no matter, even if I don't do another thing for the rest of my life. Like, as long as I love him, I'm called to be in relationship with him, but it's not about who I am or what I produce in this world. It's about a loving relationship. And I really needed to learn that at a deep level and understand that. Again, just a worldly view, which is how I grew up, versus what's truth and what's biblical. And I needed to just have a lot of heart healing. I had a lot of hurts um, that I just let get to me, and let kind of tarnish my heart. And yeah, I wanted my ex to see how much I was hurting, and yet I was only hurting myself. He didn't even care. So, it's just like know what you can control and just, it's honestly like that let go and let God do what you can and then give the rest to him, knowing that is going to be amazing and way better than anything you can control anyways.
I know, right? And it's so
Yeah.
interesting because we really do look to these worldly things for our provision and protection and our validation. Like you were talking about looking to people to tell you, you're good enough, right? I think so many of us look to other people to say, like, are we doing okay? Okay, that person validates us. So we must be doing okay. And we don't know how to get out of that cycle. So sometimes when we lose so much and we have to lay all of this down. We have to let go because otherwise it's just complete stress and chaos inside. So it's just like
Mhm.
we finally choose to just go, okay, fine, wave the white flag, like I'm surrendering, right? And it takes a lot sometimes to do that. But just in your situation, how much goodness came out of this place of choosing to lay it down, choosing to look at him as your protection, your provision, and believing that he is God, that he is good, that his character is true, his promises are true. And obviously, that had a massive impact on your life in so many beautiful ways that now you get to tell this story and glorify him through this story. And then you've shared a little bit about how he brought a message out of your mess. So what else haven't you told us about that? What kind of happened after that?
Yeah. So after a while, I did a lot of learning, which I love, and I felt like he was leading me to. I needed to learn about money and business and all those the systems. I think so many women like you and I, we get into this with a servant's heart, and yet we give and give and give, and we don't really know how to make a sustainable business out of this. So yeah, I did a lot of certifications, way too many that I like became a master financial coach and a transformational wealth coach and a tapping into wealth coach and just so much. I again just needed, well, if I have these certifications, then I'll be okay. But the stuff that he was working, even beyond those certifications, in my heart was probably the most powerful thing. Like I could still be doing everything doing today without any of those things and still be making a massive difference for him, in him, through him, just walking in the passion that I now have because I know, again, too, I know how frustrating it is to think, okay, the Lord gave me this call to be a health coach for other moms with cancer. And why isn't this working? I'm trying and yet it just nothing is working. What's going on in this stuff that you start feeding your head with and the lies that come out of that? Like, nope, like let's figure out, let's walk in truth, but let's also be really, really smart about creating business and systems and having it be sustainable and a thriving business profit or be with profit so that you can be again like blessing your family but also be generous to give to the world. And it was making my whole the mindset that I had around money. I was like, money is hard. Money, doesn't grow on trees. Money makes people evil. Just all the things. I had to learn the truth about what that really meant. And then when that set me free, I'm like, this really, it just in conversations that I have had with others, I'm like, this is really prevalent. This is a really big thing that can hold us back. Because again, if we have this in our hearts, or even if we don't even know, and it's just in our subconscious around money is hard, money changes people, money is the root of all evil, so many of us grew up with. If you're thinking, that at all, you're going to be holding yourself back from making it. Our brains are so beautiful the way he made them, but they're trying to protect us. And so if your brain's thinking, yeah, money is the root of all evil, I don't want you to be evil. I'm going to try and protect you. So let's not make any money. We really need to figure out what's going on here and walk in truth. And once you have that all cleared out and, walking in the calling that he has created you for, I just feel like he just is shining his love and we can bring so much glory to those that he calls us to serve, because at the end of the day, I want to make him proud. And I want to hear, when I go to heaven, well done, good and faithful servant. You have used the gifts that I have given you. You've not squandered them. Made the most of this. And that's just the call that I want to hear, but I also want to help other women just feel amazing about what they're doing and knowing that they're going to hear that too someday from him.
That's so beautiful. And so, say a woman's listening right now and she's totally resonating with what you're saying. She's thinking, yep, I know my money mindset and my beliefs about money. Like, I believe the things that you said about money. Money is the root of all evil. Money is this and that. And, it's not blessed are the poor in spirit. And maybe they have a little bit of a focus on, we don't need money. It's not all about money. It's about God. Like, what would you say to them?
And it's not. It should never money. Yeah, if money ever replaces God, that's a place you don't want to be part of. But for someone, that could be $100. For another person who wants to do good with that money, that could be $500 million. We don't want that money to ever replace our trust and dependence on Him. But I want to give to the world. We sponsor 3 kids from Compassion International, but I would love to have like a whole orphanage or a whole school, like build wells, spread the gospel. Like you can do so much more good, for women like us that have good hearts and want to serve God and do well with that money. Like we can do so much more good in the world when we are able to give that and give it away and feed the poor, whatever it is that we're called to, the desires of our heart. I think that sometimes we tend to think are so selfish. Like when you actually look at the word desire in the Bible, it's the de is of the, and then sire is the father. And so we have to know that this is how He created us, with these big visions, with helping the poor, whatever it is that you're called to. Like that's not selfish. That is what He has placed inside of you. That's what He is calling you to do. And so I think it's most of the time just getting out of our own way, making sure we're walking in truth, in the light, in His word, and again, just lining up, making sure it's biblical. Like when, people say, oh yeah, money is the root of all evil. Okay, well, let's examine that. Actually, it's not that money, is evil. It's the love of money. So let's just make sure that we have the truths about how we are making decisions in our lives around our calling and what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I love that because what's coming to my mind is, we have money, and if we're willing to steward it well, right? Like that, if from that place of loving God first,
Yeah.
we're going to look at, okay, how can we give it away? How can we donate to worthy causes? Like, how can we choose these, Christ-centered causes like Compassion International or like our church or whatever it is that we want to pour into. And when we have more
Yep.
finances, we give more, we can provide more abundance for others. And I think it is so much about if we love God first, when we get the money, we're going to want to steward it well. We're going to want to give back, not just to Him, but then like tithes and offerings, right? And from a place of joy and
Mhm.
knowing it's like the overflow, right? We're in the overflow. It's not like the lack and the poverty mindset, but you know what? I've been blessed with so much, and now I can give it away. And imagine that we all had that ability as Christians where we were making enough money that we just had so much money we could give it away and for His kingdom. Like how amazing would that be? And I love your take on, it's not the money is the root of all evil, because we often hear that, but we don't hear the love of money is the root of all evil. And really it's about, if we put money ahead of God, that's not right. But when we allow Him to bless us with it, then that's a good place to be, right? Is that what you're kind of saying there?
Absolutely. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So then, in this, what you're doing now, you're working with women, you feel like He brought you here, he got you into some courses to help you learn more about it. You went through difficult times. I'm sure the women you work with resonate with your story of, going through the mess, going through the pain, and then having the message and the purpose come out of the pain, right? And
Mhm.
so, when you're how do you help your clients to believe that God always has a plan, for them to stand on that truth that He will always have a good plan for their life?
Yeah, yeah, because maybe your expectations haven't lived up to what you thought was going to happen, which was me. And you're like, okay, but experience is showing that this doesn't really ring true. And so it always starts with identity and most of the time some heart healing. And just but I love bringing Jesus into any situation, really, any trauma, whether it's a really big trauma or it's a little like what I call like the little money traumas. Anytime you have something that, when you look back throughout your life, the memories and things that maybe haven't turned out the way you wanted to. We need to look through the lens of Jesus and what was he maybe protecting you from? Or what was the truth about this situation? Because again, stuff that happened when we were maybe 5, 6, 7, you were like, we made truth about that in our own little heads, but is that really actually the way that it was? And if we bring Jesus into that situation, what would he tell us? And so I do actually it's called sozo, and it's a Hebrew word that just means inner healing. It's in a word in the Bible, but I will do, either a regular sozo one for just any emotional traumas, or I do financial sozos because again, we can try and get our own perspective and, do talk therapy and whatnot. But honestly, like a moment and perspective from God around a situation that we may have feel like held us back. But when you're able to get, no, Kari, I was there with you. I was there in that room. And let me tell you what actually this meant when, your mom said, no, that dress is too expensive. When you're thinking like, I'm not good enough, like just a word from Jesus about what was actually going on can be so incredibly healing and just allow us to get over that trauma, kind of start rewiring our brain for the truth through him, and then just being able to let that go as much as we can. So, but again, it always starts with identity and foundation of who we are, who we're created to be in him and through him. And then we can do business and niche and signature system and offer all that kind of stuff afterwards. But yeah, we have to have the right mindset before we build onto anything else like that.
So true. I love that. And so, you've said so many beautiful things, Kari. Maybe you can just leave us with one last piece of advice or actionable step before we sign off.
Oh my goodness. There's always so much I want to say. And I think it's just if I could just say one thing, it would just be about seeing yourself as a daughter of the King, that he is your loving father. He has so many things. And if it, above all, I think it's just getting into and knowing the truth of his word. So whether you believe it or not, when I was in that house, I had Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans for a hope and a future. And I did not believe that, but I wrote it out a million times and it was on my fridge and it was behind, the mirror when I got ready in the morning, and it was on, just different places. Sorry, the sun is crazy around my home. And
You look like in a nice sunny environment. I love it. It just makes me want to be out in the sun. Oh, it's great. It's okay.
but it just, even if you don't feel like it's true, just know that it is and just keep repeating it to you. Maybe it's in your wallet, maybe it's on your phone, an alarm. Just keep filling your brain with the truth, I think is the biggest thing. And that's always scripture and his words for us.
That is a beautiful way to end off because it's so true. And I so appreciate you coming on and just sharing your story and your experience and like just this amazing insight into what can happen when we let go, let God, release control, right? And how God can show up in ways that we get to tell stories about it one
Yeah.
day, right? About these amazing things that he's done. And it's so beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And yeah, I just feel so blessed. I'm sure you blessed the audience as well by your talk.
Aw, I'm just, yeah, grateful to have been able to share it. And yeah, that he led me through a process of complete healing because I have been a very private person and this was not something that I felt comfortable sharing with for a very long time. And then at one point he was just like, Kari, if you don't share, no one's, that's not going to bring me any glory. And I was like, yeah, but then I have to tell about me, So, but no, I'm so grateful for all of it, every single aspect of it. because it's led me to him and it's got me to this point of full surrender, trust, and obedience.
Oh yeah, and then when you get to the point where, we share those areas inside that we want to kind of like sweep under the carpet or kind of hide in the closet, not really look at them, not even talk to God about them, but just like let them be in there. And then he asks us to come and reveal them. It's scary, but like you said, like how are you going to glorify God if you don't share those things where people can really relate to you? You're being vulnerable and open, and I always think vulnerability creates the space for other people to be vulnerable and share what's going on with them. So thank you for that blessing of vulnerability and for just choosing to listen to him and be obedient. It's beautiful.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thanks for having me. Super fun to be here.
And those of you tuning in, be sure to catch the next masterclass on being rooted in God's love. See you there. Bye. Thank you for watching. If you connected with this content and it helped you in some way, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Also, check the description below for special gifts just for you. See you in the next video.